You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A Radiant Creator isn't making a living, they are living.
This is Radiant Creators, radiantcreators.com, and we have Freeman, the real one, the original, possibly the original podcaster, here on the show. And I'm just going to read a couple lines from your bio, if that works, because it's good. Freeman has been on the forefront of conspiracy theory for nearly 2 decades. He's an internationally known, award-winning TV producer, filmmaker, radio talk show host, and lecturer. Freeman is considered an expert in the fields of the occult, trauma-based mind control, Illuminati symbolism, and ancient civilizations by his peers and professionals within his industry. Freeman has lectured extensively on the secret signs and symbolism of Freemasonry, the ancient astronaut hypothesis, trauma-based mind control, social engineering, government conspiracy, human cloning, technologies of the future, and synchronicity. There you are, Freeman. What do you have to say for yourself?
Oh, man, thank you. What I would say is Google Freeman debunked, and there's only 3. And one of them says, well, we know Freeman's a shill because his bio is written too well.
Oh, gosh.
I was like, that's awesome. That's the best debunking I've ever seen. Certainly, I've never been debunked. And you can Google that all day long and see that no one has ever tried to debunk my material. But sometimes they want to slash my character if they can. But if your worst attack on me is to say that I write too well, then that's awesome.
And what they probably don't get when they're debunking is that bio has been in the works for 20 years. You know, you didn't just write it last night.
Right. Well, I wrote it glowingly, but I wrote it. But yeah, I like to Google myself from time to time. I'll admit that, and see what they're saying. Find out what's up with people's thoughts, because I want to know what directions to go. I want to know where they're attacking me from, and but you can't, and that's why there's no Freeman debunked on anything, because you can't.
How did you, so I kind of went into your bio a little bit, so people have an idea of who you are. I mean, if anybody's listening right now, after this has been recorded, or live, check out Freeman. Freeman, let's see, freemantv.com. I mean, if you're not checking that out, then there's something wrong with you. You're a little funny, so fix yourself. And there's, how many podcasts, how many hours of material do you actually have up there? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I would say well over 1,000 hours.
That's amazing.
Because I did a TV show, a podcast, another podcast, and also I'm a guest on many other programs. So it was pretty much, 5 days a week. If anything, you could say I produced too much.
I don't know. It seems like in the social media world right now, because like you mentioned in one of your interviews recently, that people aren't really looking at websites so much. They're looking at their stream. So if you're not in their stream, you don't exist. So it seems like you have to keep that stream full so that people don't forget you. It's kind of like being an actor. If they don't see your face, then they kind of forget you exist. Do you notice that? Are people still using websites? Do they still go to Freeman TV, or are they just watching their streams?
Yeah, it's true. You're pretty much invisible if you're not in the Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus streams. You just don't exist. And right now, everybody is talking about all the censorship and things of that nature, just like YouTube was about to delete my channel after, what has it been, 9 years, and they suddenly decided. But I survived the great YouTube purge. I only got 2 strikes. Some reason they fixed it all before I got my 3rd, so my YouTube channel stays. But it's a very bizarre thing. So when I was looking at my stats just recently, just to kind of see what happened, so YouTube shut me down, right? They gave me these 2 strikes, which were retroactively applied. They were for shows that were 3 years old. And suddenly they're against the community guidelines. So suddenly but with 2 strikes on your YouTube channel, you're not allowed to upload videos. And so for a month or 2, I was not able to upload videos to YouTube. Now there's 15,000 people on YouTube that listen to my show there every week. But of course, it's not the source of my show. The source of my show is freemantv.com, where you go and, you can listen much easier. There's no commercials. It's so much easier. But these people, you get in that thread where you don't go to the website. Even my members don't actually go to the website. Once you have the feed, it's just going straight into your iTunes or your player or whatever. So even the members don't need to go to my website. Once you've gone once, or even as a non-member, you can sign up for any of the streams and then you never have to return. But if you do that, you're missing everything, because Freeman TV is my magnum opus. It has everything I've done for 13 years. It's deep. It's got, not just me. I have full conferences and lectures on there. I have written articles, interesting videos from YouTube. I have a whole section just called Weird Videos. I have 2 sections called Weird Videos because they were so many. But if you just sat and watched that, you'd be dumbfounded. I'm not in that at all. It's not all dedicated to me. I have a whole section on my website called the Space War News, where you can follow the coming space war, which Trump just announced, from the time we bombed the moon forward. So I've been databasing all of these type of things, not to mention all the links to all the different researchers and types and all of that. It's a lot of work to build a website. So when you realize, I had to learn 9 different softwares just to do this, all the Adobe products. I needed Photoshop, Premiere, InDesign, the list goes on and on of the amount of software I've had to master in order to do this, including all the audio. It's a lot of work. And so you find out. So this was a curious thing that I just noted. So I was blocked from uploading to YouTube. So I was pretty much making jokes on my show saying, hey, well, somebody tell those 15,000 people on YouTube that the show's still going, because they just think I quit. They don't go to your website to see what's happened or anything. What actually happened was the numbers of listeners to the podcast dipped. And this made no sense to me whatsoever. I would think if I was blocked on YouTube, the number of people coming to listen to it from the site would rise. But instead it went down, which really, that has me completely baffled at this point. So you can see how interrelated everything is. If I don't put it on the Twitter feed, if I don't put it on the Facebook feed, and I'm blocked from Facebook. I've been banned from Facebook 9 times because I won't give them my driver's license. I just refuse. And so they deny me access to my profile on Facebook. And I now have 9 profiles on Facebook where there are 5,000 people that think I just quit because I don't have access to it, but it's still there. Fortunately, I was smart enough to make a profile person, a show page for Facebook on someone else's account, so that no matter how many times they delete me from Facebook, that remains. The real Freeman Fly on Facebook is not me, but it's me sending other people to do my work there, because you can't not have it. And so, yes, it's very true. I thought my whole career, I thought people were loving, when I was on MySpace, I thought people were going to my profile and seeing all the stuff. My MySpace back in the day was the largest database of my work. And I thought people were going there and listening to the music I put up, and they were doing that. No, man, nobody's doing anything like that. I got like 3 Twitter followers that retweet. You know what I mean? It's taken me, I've been on Twitter since the day Twitter began. I have 6,000 followers. I've been on YouTube since the day it began. I just hit 100,000 followers. It's very slow and painstaking to collect people into your social media networks, and then they can just delete you. And so this is a huge issue. I mean, I almost was deleted from YouTube. I've been deleted 9 times from Facebook. And then I was also denied access to retweeting on Twitter for a time, and I don't know why. Or even tweeting news articles. I wasn't allowed to do that either, and I have no idea why. So all of these feeds, they can just cut you off. And unfortunately, the listening audience just never thinks, well, why don't I just go over to his website and see what's going on? They don't. So a classic example of this is when I took the bus tour. So I know these are going to answer a few of the questions you had for me, but I just want to roll through this real quick.
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah, go with it. Go with the flow.
Okay, so the podcast has never made money, right? I didn't do it to make money, but I had hoped that people would chip in. I had hoped that there would be an etiquette of tipping that might be formed for podcasters. Because to be honest, if 10% of my listening audience 10 years ago was giving me $1, that's 10% of the audience. That means only, that many need to give once a month, $1, right? If 10% of the audience was giving me $1 a month, then I could have supported myself and maybe even grown into something bigger and bolder. But I could not get these people to chip in $1. They seemed like the dollar was just, they would send $1 and apologize. And if I did a money bomb, like the InfoWars type of scenario, I usually got about $30. And I knew there were 6,000 people out there listening live, and then another 20 to 30,000 that listen later. And I couldn't get $1, So I thought that tipping process could be developed. And I talked about it for years and years and years and years and years. And it never worked. So eventually I ended up homeless, right? So because podcasting doesn't pay, right? So I've been homeless 4 times doing this, but this particular time was 2012. Each time I went homeless doing the show, I turned it into another production. So a lot of things that you'll see that I'm traveling around the United States, getting all kinds of crazy esoteric footage and sharing this travels with you is because I was suddenly homeless and wandering the United States. So my show became that. So I attempted to do this with when I saw that I was going to be homeless, and I was doing my show on a different network, on Oracle Broadcasting. And so everybody would go to Oracle Broadcasting, but I thought that they also used my website, which has existed for 13 years. It's not like it's new. I still have people go, oh, you have a website? But so when I quit Oracle because I couldn't, keep my house, I asked if 29 people would give me $20, I could buy a school bus and I'd tour the country in that school bus and then film it all and show you how synchronicity manifests itself. I wanted to show you the 10 years of nomadic travel that I had done before, only as a special event for 2012. So 2012, I believe I was the most interesting thing that happened. But what happened was no one followed. No one realized that they had to go to freemantv.com to watch the bus tour. They just wrote me scornful letters saying, why'd you quit? Why'd you quit? And I'm like, I didn't quit. It's all going on right now at freemantv.com. We're here, we're there, we're doing this. And but because I was no longer in that feed, I would just vanish. And it's the most remarkable thing to me. So everybody missed this amazing bus trip and all the things that happened. We outdid the merry pranksters of the 60s. We had it all funded. Okay, here's one more layer to this. So I'm in a big yellow school bus touring the country. Now, mind you, I am pushing a 20-ton vehicle that gets 2 miles to the dollar. All right, 2 miles to the dollar. That means if you miss your exit, it costs you $10, right? That's the truth. So without a job and without any money, this was all just synchronistic and sponsored by people that I ran into. So what occurred was some people knew that I was on this bus trip, and they wrote me and said, hey, why don't you bring your big bus to my house and park it in front of my house so the police come here? Because that's generally what happened with the school bus. It would last about 3 days before the cops were laying tickets all over it saying you can't park a bus in a residential zone, even though it was a motorhome, which you can park anyway. But because it was a school bus motorhome, it did not count. So anyway, these people that invited me to their place with my big old school bus, I began to question them. One, they didn't seem to know at all what I thought I would be known for, which was space war, high technologies, cloning, things of this nature. They knew me for my synchronistic self and the crazy wizard that I am. So, that's fine with me too, but it kind of shocked me because I've talked about topics like the X-37B, the cloud of care, the space war, so much that it makes me sick to talk about it. I got friends around me like, can you not bring that up on the air anymore? But yet when I speak to people that listen to me, they have no idea what I'm talking about. But what I found the most curious here, Craig, is that every person that invited me to their house to sleep on their couch had never been to my website. Not one of them.
Oh my.
How is that?
So how are they hearing about you?
That was my question. And, I would get answers like, well, I follow you on YouTube, obviously was the number one. And then the other was, well, there's a fan base site made that occasionally puts up your shows. And I looked at it and had pink cursive font as its, and I was just like, oh my God, seriously, I work so hard on freemantv.com. You don't know, 8 hours a day I'm making this thing and you guys won't go there. I don't understand what's happening here. But yeah, that's a conundrum that I have no answer for. But to see that everybody does simply go to the stream, just as with MySpace, they weren't going to my profile. They're just seeing what, came in their stream that day. And then to try to get people to interact with you, like I would think my Twitter feed it's awesome. I love my Twitter feed. I share all the weirdest news and all the crazy things going on, glow-in-the-dark cats and human sheep hybrids. And, it's all straight news and straightforward, science that's going on, but it's happening. And, I get 3 people that if I see that my tweet's being reshared, I already know who's doing it. You know what I mean? It's only these same 3 people, even though I have 6,000 followers. So then what do we do there? It's weird. It's as if the audience doesn't feel they need to participate in this. So, they won't give $1 and they won't reshare. I mean, that's the easiest way to support the show is just to share it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's something I know I don't mention enough when I'm doing the show is for people to share it. I mean, that is so incredibly helpful to content creators. I mean, so if you're listening out there, share Freeman's tweets and, share his YouTubes. And then same with Radiant Creators here on this podcast. Wherever you're hearing it, like it, comment. Comments are quite useful, and share it. So that's really the truth. I mean, we're coming into kind of a new economy of social media, or a new economy of media, and it's changing. I think it's kind of changing with Patreon and methods like that, where people can easily donate $1 or more, and there can be and such. But I think people are catching up to and realizing the power, or maybe they're not realizing the power of being $1 a month supporter. I mean, if you have 5,000 people that support you with $1 a month, that's 5,000 a month, and then if you have that many more that are sharing and retweeting, and I mean, that makes life easier. It does get the message out there. So I feel like I'm just sensing it. I don't have facts to back this up except our little numbers here at Radiant Creators, but it seems that there's a social media burnout happening out there, and or there's definitely something funny with, as people speak about, shadow banning or something strange. Like, I see your tweets, but I there's a lot of, I think there's manipulation out there, because I do question sometimes. Like, here's one on YouTube. We put our interviews up a couple different places, and on YouTube, they do okay. It really depends on who we interviewed. But on BitChute, which is like a YouTube alternative that we started posting there too, we are kicking ass, and I don't even really know why, but BitChute's doing many times better than YouTube, and it's, I mean, I don't even know if I want to bother with YouTube, because BitChute does so much better. And then anyway, so I would say there's some weird wrinkle in time, some strange thing happening in reality, where like social media is not exactly working as well as it used to, because I know some people I've talked to who are telling me that as their subscriber base, as their following continues to get larger, their interaction is almost exponentially getting smaller, getting less. And that's kind of, it doesn't make sense, but I think there's a virus out there. There's a social media virus that is just messing things up. I'm seeing it, at least. I think I'm seeing it. I could be crazy, but I think I'm seeing it.
There's a lot of people turning away right now as YouTube is forcing Snopes onto you, and Facebook is forcing Wikipedia alternative facts onto you. So, with Zuckerberg before Congress and all of that. So there is a great turning away from these type of social networks. Everybody's realizing that their entire phone history and addresses are all data-based in their Facebook profiles. People are downloading these now and looking at how much data Facebook, Twitter, and Google have stolen and used from you. I mean, especially Google. Oh my God, they know more about you than you know. So there is a great turning away. I'm happy to hear about the BitChute. I suppose I've reached a point where it's like I've had to learn so many technologies every other week in order to keep going that I'm just so tired I can't put my stuff up on BitChute. I have a Steemit account and I've only got one post on it. But of course, without my Twitter feed, no one's going to go to my Steemit feed. You know what I mean? You got to have one to shift them all to the other.
Oh, I get you. You end up having to, like what we're doing, we kind of post our content everywhere and then just see what gets interaction, then we stick to it. Like we tried Steemit, and I haven't gotten a lot of action on Steemit, although I know some people do. Then there's DTube, which is kind of a video like counterpart to Steemit, but DTube sucks. I can't stand it. I gave up on it. And but BitChute, it's very, very simple, easy to make an account. It actually is more elegant and quicker and more seamless than YouTube. Super easy to post your videos there. And like I say, it's doing better than YouTube. I mean, so many times over better than YouTube. We're getting a lot of action on BitChute. So that's nice. Working, and I think that's worth it. And of course, it's free. And then, but at the same time, there's Minds, like Minds.com. So the open source, I guess you could say, alternative to Facebook. It's kind of the same thing. And the population is growing out there. But even if we promote things that we put out there, crickets. I have never seen a referral link come from Minds ever. Right. So I think people in social media right now, or people who use social media to promote themselves, really are stuck with having to promote, put their stuff on as many platforms as they can handle without their eyes starting to bleed, and just see what happens. Because I think if we start putting our content there, it will be worthwhile, because I think at the end of this year, especially the next 2019, but even the end of this year, I think Facebook will continue to just go downhill. So will YouTube. And I think it'll be good to already have your presence on those other platforms as they, work.
Because nobody's going to go to your website.
No, they don't bother with that. I know they don't. Yeah, your website. It's like
God, I wish I'd known it was such a waste of time. Because for me, it was my main work of art. Every artwork, every link, every word, the style of the website, everything about it, I did. Every letter on there, I did every single thing, and it's massive. You got to understand, 13 years. And then to realize that it's just like this old hunk of a computer sitting in the corner or something that nobody really wants to turn on, it's just sad.
Oh, I get you. I get you. Well, I think when you started to create it, when you were first, creating your website, if I look at that being 10 years ago or 15, 20, like however many years ago it was, even 10, that was a different world. And a website was much more, poignant at the time. And, I always try to link things back to our website because in a way that gives me an idea of, what social media platforms are working and to what extent. So it's very useful. Hey, people, click on those links, check people's sites out. It really helps us figure out not who you are, but see if our promotions are working and such like that. Well, because one more thing about the social media is I think also the censorship is kind of a pain because if you've seen some of our interviews, none of them are really, they're pretty tame. They're very enlightening. They're really fun, but they're not the kind that get censored. But we actually had our first censorship ever. Was our last interview with a guy named Tijo, who's got the Arcane Bear community, and great character. And it worked on Facebook, worked everywhere. But on Instagram, they were like, no, you're naughty. And it's like, what? And you kind of appeal it, and basically they just never get back to you. And They don't exactly tell you why. They just give you a vague notion of why if you ask. And then they say, well, here's our community guidelines. And it's 11 pages of pretty much anything you could possibly post. They can say they don't like it. And so I wonder if that's slowing people down because I'm thinking man, if they are I understand how some people, I understand how some topics, I understand how some personalities would get censored. I could say, well, I don't agree with it, but at least I can understand how they would, how the system would hook them and go, oh, well, you're talking about whatever.
Well, but Alex Jones is being sued for saying Sandy Hook didn't happen right now.
Yeah.
The families of Sandy Hook are suing him at this moment. And, of course, that's what caused the great YouTube purge, was anyone that spoke out on false flags or crisis actors. And that's what also got me my strikes, which was, years and years ago, as I say, but yet the strikes just came. It wasn't even about this Parkland shooting, which you can't mention on YouTube. Sorry. But, control of content right there. And
it's so pervasive. It's so pervasive. It's topics like that, but it seems like it's topics. If you mention cryptocurrency, boom, you get demonetized pretty much, or outright you can't monetize at all. So it's just I think that could be part of it, because I'm noticing, at least I think, I'm also noticing less content being pumped into social media. I'm noticing feeds that I follow, less people are putting the effort into YouTube and Facebook and such like that, and they're going to the alternative platforms, and we'll see how those work. Right now they're kind of, shovel and sand against the tide, it feels like, with some of them, but I guess it's important to keep content mirrored there because one day it'll pay off. It's kind of an investment, I guess.
The one thing that I've heard my entire career from day one when I was on Access Television, before there were even such a thing as podcasts, before there was YouTube, before there was Google Video, there was Access Television. And so 13 years ago, I started that. And that's how I began this whole crazy path, just by accident. Ended up on Access Television 13 years later. I'm still doing it, although now it's, completely different because I don't need a TV studio. But the one thing that I would hear from every single person that, well, if I would mention, hey, if you guys are kicking $1, it'd really help with the show. The number one response is, why don't you get a sponsor? Now, let me tell you something. I am banned from so many broadcasts, the big ones, coast to coast, things like that, because of sponsors. I'm banned from YouTube because of sponsors. These are the reasons that you lose your channel, is sponsors. So they're the enemy. And if you've ever tried to get a sponsor, now what is a sponsor going to do? I can't get you to tip me $1, but you're going to go buy their product. Like, how is that even going to help in the first place? Because the sponsor ain't going to make no money either, And so now you're asking me to throw in another control grid so that I have to keep the sponsor happy. And when all you needed to do was give $1, it's $1. It's like, come on, An interesting story about crowdfunding and the thoughts of crowdsourcing and then the emotions that go along. I'll admit a slightly embarrassing youthful story here from when I was in elementary school. And everyone would go through the lunch line. And when you got through the lunch line, you paid your change, and everyone ended up with 16 cents left on their tray. And so it was a penny, a dime, and a nickel. And just for fun, now I wasn't poor, I wasn't in need or anything like that, but I was bored, and I'm a very active person, and I'm a very social person. So I would stand at the end of the line and collect everybody's penny, nickel, and dime. And they didn't care, they're like, yeah, here. And so the whole line would go by and I'd get 16 cents from everybody. By the end of the day, I'd take that satchel of change that I had and dump it out on my desk and start counting it. I'm going up to $28. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I'm going to go buy a bunch of Star Wars cards, And the kids then saw the pile of money. And when they realized that I was walking away with $28, then all of a sudden that 16 cents became very important. And I don't know what sociological study this will show, but suddenly nobody wanted to give the 16 cents anymore because they saw that it built into $28, and then they became envious or jealous. And so suddenly, so I don't know. That's just kind of one of those weird stories where as a youth, I already kind of grabbed the concept of crowdsourcing and how simple. And then if you go into quantum dynamics, as you realize that every time paradigm shifts, it tends to shift with our knowledge of the universe and how it functions. And we're currently in the age of quantum dynamics. And quantum dynamics say minimum input. A butterfly flaps its wings, maximum output causes a hurricane in Japan, right? That's where we're at right now. Minimum input, maximum output. So people need to realize a quarter, 50 cents or anything, because we have this we've never lived in a time where you could ask $1 from 1 million people. You had to go through some foundation. You had to have TV access. You had to have, all of that in order to do this. Now we have this straightforward access. And we can raise up anything we want to raise up. And we do not understand this power yet. And I have a feeling that a little bit of the envy gets in there when they think, oh, well, you know what? He's going to make $1 million if I give $1. And I think that upsets some people, although it doesn't seem to bother them when they're giving Alex Jones $1 million to pay his taxes, because he throws a money bomb and within 13 hours, he has $1 million. I've watched it happen. I'm not exaggerating. He can just go out and ask and everybody gives. And that's because he's kind of a martyr for them. And so they want to pay their martyr to, be under the gun so that they don't have to. That's what I kind of figure from that scenario. But yeah, I've tried to get people to support and sponsor this show because I wanted to grow bigger. I wanted to go around the country. I wanted to show you things. And I managed to do it all completely broke. So the next thing I wanted to do was show you my bank account. I wish throughout the entire 13 years, there was an easy way, safe way for me to show you that I had zero money in my bank account. Not to make you feel guilty about the fact that I was at zero, but so that you could see how much someone can do completely broke and homeless. Because I started the show living in my van. And then I've continued the show broke and homeless. I'm now 13 years in, and I still do not have a savings account. So I always manage to get to zero somehow. But if I don't, now the school bus is another interesting factor. The people gave the money for the school bus to put me on the road, but they didn't pay $1 to keep my rent paid. So they were willing to participate if it was something that they found was fun and interesting. But if I was simply asking, hey, can you pay my rent? Then it was no. So it's interesting how this all works.
Yeah, you've been on the forefront. You were, I think a lot of people consider you kind of one of the original. I wouldn't say original. Maybe I'll use the word original, like original podcasters. You've been doing it.
I'm OG.
Yeah, you're OG. You've been doing it before it was cool or before anybody exactly knew what it was. You just started doing it, and something that I that really struck me was so you were home free for a decade in that bus, I believe, right? Was that 10
No,
years?
the bus was just 2012.
Okay, just
the rest
2012.
of the time I was in a van.
Okay, so you were home free in a bus
Multitude of
or a van. Yeah, so you had your armada of vans and a bus at one time for about 10 years. And something that you said when you were talking with a recent interview, Eric Rains, that I'd love to just because I think you, more than anyone I know, you are this. You have this down. This happens for you. It happens for me too, but I can learn from you. You said with Eric Rains, I believe, you said when you were panicked, when you were on the road, when you were on a free ride for 10 years and you would panic, and we all panic, everybody can relate to this, and you would say, am I okay right now? And then you would realize that you were, and then the miraculous would begin to happen. And then another line when you were talking with Eric Rains is you said, suddenly miraculous events start occurring in your life and you start fulfilling your true life's purpose at this time with no intention of your own. Suddenly, let me reword that, sorry. Suddenly miraculous events start occurring in your life and you start fulfilling your true life's purpose. Suddenly, you are in sync with your vibrations, and suddenly things just fall into your path. And that really struck me. So it's interesting how you definitely are riding the synchronicity. I mean, you depend on it, like your intent creates. And as you went around, it was almost like in your bus or your van, and you would go places and people would put you up and help you. You were you were kind of this mobile gathering. It was like you'd say, hey everybody, welcome home, I'm here, we can all get together and hang out. So it's interesting how we can master some things so well, but then other things just escape us. So it seems like you're a master of synchronicity, and abundance on one level, but getting people to show up with that dollar is a real challenge. Like, what do you think of that? I mean,
yeah, and honestly, that was the most important thing for me to ask is, am I okay right now? Because it totally settled the spirit, and when the spirit settled, you can function, you can interact, and of course, synchronicity all relies on interaction with other human beings. I would say that friendship was my currency. And because I was so trusted and liked, I was able to do all kinds of things that, generally would take you millions of dollars to do. And I had another phrase that I would say all the time was, I ain't dead yet. And this was kind of a tongue-in-cheek scenario because everything was better than I could have ever imagined. But according to standard models, I should have been dead long ago, homeless, living, hungry in the street somewhere. So it always shocked me that everything, I was living the life of a millionaire while living in my van. It's part of life that is completely missed, and it's because we're completely institutionalized from day one. Now, I've just always been a free, rambling spirit. From the time I was a child, I just walked away from my house and walked for miles and had no idea what I was doing until my family finally found me freaking out, and that was the same thing that happened to me in 1993 when I decided to hit the road. I was making juggling sticks, and I realized that I could sell these juggling sticks in any park across America. I didn't have any further thought than that, other than, I can live on $30 a day. So let's go. And I grabbed my friend and I jumped in a bus and a Volkswagen van, And a little dog decided to join me at that very moment. It was the strangest miraculous. It was the first miraculous event in this story of this dog, because the Fool card in the tarot deck is a boy juggling with a black and white spotted dog pawing at his ankle as he's about to step off a cliff. And the question is he falling or will he fly? And I flew. So it made a huge difference, but yet the universe formed that tarot card around me. That little black and white dog just showed up out of nowhere, had been waiting there for 3 days, according to my friends, and then suddenly just stayed at my heel. I never leashed him, not once. Stayed at my heel for 4 years. Just followed me wherever I would go, no matter what I did. And he was always there, and no one ever noticed him. I had this little magical dog. I could walk into restaurants. I could walk into movie theaters, anything. And he was so close to my ankle at all times that he was just not noticed. And because I didn't leash him and I didn't think about him, he sat in McDonald's with me, because at that time I actually still ate McDonald's, and had a burger of his own at the table. And the only people that would see that dog were the children. And they'd start giggling and pointing, and I'd give them the shush sign, and they'd realize that this was something special, and they'd shut up and giggle more, you know. But that started the magical trip. And so I didn't know. I was just going to keep going. But I landed in Washington, D.C. It was the first place I stopped. And there happened to be a major rainbow gathering in front of Bill Clinton's White House. And so this really was the first Occupy. We lived for 9 days, like 100 or more of us in the park in front of Bill Clinton's White House. And I'm laying there, never have left Florida before, really. And all of a sudden I hear my name being called. I'm like, what is this? Turned out to be a girl that I sold a set of juggling sticks to at the flea market in Florida. She turns out to be one of the lead paleontologists at the Smithsonian, and she takes me downstairs into the secret compartments where I got to play with all the things that no one gets to look at. And things like that just kept happening. Everywhere I went, there was someone I knew. And I'm like, how can this be? So it became a thing. Everywhere I go, I will run into someone I know. Now that I've traveled for so long, I know tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people. And as I wander around and do all this, then occasionally I would winter somewhere. I would find a home and stick with it for the winter. And then as soon as rainbow came around, June, spring, I was ready to get in my van. There was nothing that could keep me from getting in that van. I quit a Kansas University job, said, see ya, I'm getting in my van, So it's not like I was forced into that lifestyle. I want, because it's so much fuller than any life that you can experience. And I've done so much and seen so much. And now I know, as you were saying, that I have absolute faith in the synchronicities, that I'm not even concerned that I haven't had a job since 1999. It doesn't even, I would never think of going and getting a job. I couldn't do it. I'd rather be in my van. But as long as synchronicity is keeping me in a home right now, I'm going to keep it. And so right now things are going good and I'm holding it together. I mean, I'm still at zero, like I say, but I see it progressing now. This might be the final plateau where I finally get to stand on stable ground and move forward and start to increase and not have to build from the chaos that is the synchronistic realms, although I love it. So who knows? I have no idea what's going to happen. That's the best part.
Oh, I have a feeling that 2018 is going to be your year where you begin to profit. And, well, something you said, like you have no idea. I like that. In the Celestine Prophecy, there's a great line where they're trying to find their way. And one of the more knowledgeable elders, someone asks him, well, how do we know which way to go? You just told us to do this and this and this, but I don't know which way to go. And I think the guy's name was Father Sanchez in the Celestine Prophecy, and he just said, none of us know where we're going, but there was just that certainty, like, you'll figure it out,
Right.
And then with your dog that tagged along, that reminds me of course, the Fool card. I mean, that's an omen right there. And I think if anyone's making a tarot deck out there, they should use Freeman as the Fool. That would be cool. And
Awesome.
yeah, it'd be amazing. And so there's a book that's, when you were talking, I was reminded of. It's called Running for My Life, and it's by an Olympic athlete. This guy, his name is Lopez Lomong, and he was actually a refugee, and he was in a kind of a refugee camp, and life was not looking too good. And he escaped. Oh, actually, he was in a refugee camp, and he escaped, and he ended up getting grabbed by some kind of bandits, you might say, who were kind of creating child soldiers in Africa out of kids. And he got stuck in that situation, and he amazingly escaped. He just found his way out because he just knew he would. He was so determined. He's like, I will escape this prison camp. They're trying to make me a little murderer, you know? They were doing a lot of brainwashing on these kids. And so he just found a way at one moment where he could just walk out. And he just did. Nobody was looking, and he ran like crazy. And 2 kids went with him. Anyway, these 3 kids all made it across the desert, a lot of harrowing adventure, and almost got caught a couple of times, found their way back to another refugee camp, where at least it was sane. And when they got there, he looked around and they were gone. The other 2 kids were gone. And the people who he walked up to at the camp, at the gate, basically said, "You're by yourself, kid." And so he's convinced to this day that there were 2 angels in the form of 2 other kids who actually helped him along the way. I mean, that's amazing. You know, so your story reminds me of that. I mean, you've definitely got some good mojo going. And you interviewed Sherry Sweeney recently, and a line that I believe she said in that interview was, the universe is trying to tell you things. You know, it's always trying to tell you things if you're just in the right, just getting the right energy to receive it. Like the universe there's no dearth of avenues, there's no dearth of information. I mean, the universe is always trying to pull us towards our excitement, just that we're not always tuned into it. Or even if we are, well, you know, it doesn't make us, hasn't made you rich yet. But I think
we're tend to program for maladaptive daydreaming. And that is where you expect the worst things to happen, and then you act as if they already have. And then when you come into the situation, you're already believing it's going to be the worst, or you've already got that vibration in you. And so maladaptive daydreaming is something everybody has to combat. And we've discovered, you know, there's about 50,000 thoughts that go through your head a day, and 2/3 of these will be negative. And that is that question, am I okay right now? That is the battle that, you know, you go through with the maladaptive daydreaming. And if you can convince yourself that it's all going to go right, even if you're in the worst case scenarios, like, you know, in the Celestine prophecies, they end up in a jail, but it turns out that that's where they needed to go to meet the next person that was guiding them on their path. You never know. You know, you may think you know what the negative situation is about, but yet there's a positive inside of it that you're not seeing because you're caught up in all the negative. So that is a major point that people need to battle, because we are right now always conditioned to look for the worst possible scenario and the worst possible human activities. We expect the worst from everyone at this point. So that's why I believe that if everyone were suddenly homeless, like say the Y2K event had happened, the entire grid shut down, nobody could pay their bills or whatever, I believe the world would have moved into this synchronistic realms if there were enough people to realize see it happening. You see, because synchronicity is one of those things where, first of all, the Celestine prophecies hadn't come out when I started my synchronicity travel, so I didn't have the words to describe what was happening.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yeah, but when the Celestine prophecies did come out, it was the craziest thing. I could not escape it. There was no escape. Everybody was reading it around me everywhere I went, and I would freak my friends out, like, no, seriously, watch this. And I'd stop a random person on the street and say, what insight are you on? And almost invariably they would say, well, I'm kind of stuck on the third. And I'd laugh. Of course you are, because it requires you to believe your imagination is real. And my friends would sit there with their jaw slack because this person knew what I was talking about. Or at another time, I decided to practice the insights, and I was at a park, and I saw this couple sitting at a park table and said, I really feel the need to talk to them. I told my friends, I'm going to go practice the insights. I'm going to go talk to these people. And they were like, oh, okay, whatever, Freeman, because creative play is the critical essence to our entire existence. And it's creative play that the Hollywood, the military, the propaganda, all of it is destroying. That's why Disney is capturing your imagination. Creative play is the escape. It is the escape. And everybody thinks they got to battle. They got to do this, that, and the other. But all they got to do is get out there and play. And they don't believe it. They think they have to get negative to fight negative, right? So I went over to these people and said to them, hey, I'm practicing the insights, and I felt this need to speak with you. And they said, oh, yeah, we're reading the Celestine prophecies, but we're more with the Palladian view. And I said, oh, yeah, I just got into that, and I just finished Barbara Hanclos or Barbara Marciniak, one of them. And they said, oh, it's you we're waiting for. And they ran over to their car and they grabbed the next book in that series and gave it to me. So then they were like, well, hey, we're going to draw you this map. These are all the Palladian places that you need to go. And so they wrote me down all of this stuff and told me where to go and even where to hook up with the witches to get mushrooms. And this was all in South America or Guatemala and Mexico. And, I looked at the map and I thought to myself, I'm a hobo. When I'm in Mexico, I guess I'll think about this. But it turns out I went to Guatemala, I went to Mexico, and I didn't think about it. I was suddenly flown there on a crazy mission to go perform the first ever all-night ritual with the Mayans at the pyramids of Tikal. Now, the Mayans had prophesied that a tribe of nations would gather for this once-in-a-lifetime event, the first and only time the Mayans will ever be allowed to do the ritual during the nighttime over a whole night on the winter solstice. Even Drumbelow Melchizedek was there, but I didn't know that either. And I was suddenly on a crazy trip. Oh, my God. I thought I had some shaman behind me hitting me on the head all the time because I got hit in the head so many times. I don't know what that was all about. But puking, sick, Montezuma's revenge, I made it to the Mayans. And I made it to the Guatemala pyramids from the volcanoes of the Atlan. And I ended up with a group that were representatives of every nation, just about, that we had all just gathered together for this ritual, not knowing one was coming or the other. And we fulfilled this prophecy of the Mayans, that this tribe of nations would gather and that this time the ritual was for the entire world. Now, when we finished the ritual, they had told me about the year before when George W. Bush came to perform that very same ritual, only during the daytime because they weren't allowed to do it at night. And they said a massive dragon, a black dragon, had flown over. When we performed the ritual there, they told me, well, we're all leaving Guatemala because it's going to be owned by the fishes soon, which is what they said, that the Atlan was going to overflow and wash out everything, flood everything, and devastation was on its way. On the morning of the winter solstice, after the all-night ritual, the sun did not rise, and this is a major sign. There was so much fog that you could not see the sun till late afternoon, and so this was a really bad omen for them. Well, so I get back home finally after getting caught in a mudslide. I missed my flight, and this is all told in my story, the Mayan. What did I call that one? Freeman and Maya Land. Because I found myself standing in San Cristobal, Mexico, and I was standing on this street corner trying to figure out where the hostel was that I was going to go stay at, that I had stayed at before on the way out. And I couldn't find where I was going. I was completely lost and just wandering in circles with all my gear. I come back around the circle, around the block, And there's another guy standing on the exact same corner, looking lost, with the exact same backpack and tent in his hands. Only he's a Mexican. I'm in Mexico. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. So I go over to him because when I was standing on that corner, all I wanted was somebody to come and say, hey, do you need a hand? So I walked over to him and said, hey, do you need a hand? And he says, yes, I'm trying to find my friends. And it turned out to be these Swedish girls. And we are all heading off to Palenque and Tulum together because I had missed my airplane due to a mudslide. Now, when that mudslide came down in front of the transport that was taking me to the airport, I was thrilled. I was so happy to be trapped in Guatemala and Mexico. I did not want to go back. I wanted to go back to the Atollan. I wanted to go back to the volcanic islands and just hang out. So I was not mad at all that I had been blocked from my flight, but I had no idea what was going to occur. Next thing I know, I'm in, Tulum, I'm in Palenque with these Swedish girls and this cool Mexican guy that I just happened to talk to, and it fulfilled my rest of the trip to take me back to the airport in time to catch my flight. I get back home and I think of that note that those people wrote me. Now, they wrote me this in 1995 or something like that, and the ritual was 2008 or 2007. So, we're talking almost 10 years later when I still have this note that those guys wrote me about. Well, I guess it had to be 96 since the Celestine Prophecies came out. And every place they told me to go is every place that I went, from San Cristobal to the Atollan to every single place, to Tulum to Palenque, was on that list of things that they told me that I needed to go to for Pleiadians connection. And I did it all without ever even remembering their map.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you have a scan of that list of that map? Is that up on your
No, I never
website?
Thought to do that.
I mean, I mean, if it's possible, I'd love a scan of that. If you posted that, I would post it with the interview. I mean, that's
okay. I'll do that.
That would be extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a stack of notebooks that are my show notes. Oh yeah. Like 13 years of notebooks that I keep every show note. So I have all of that still because I keep all my notebooks. So yeah, I have it. I can send you.
Oh, I would love that. We'll definitely include that with this show because that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, it seems like there's this real power in, I think, part of the getting of wisdom, maybe part of the realization of wisdom. Like you're getting there when you have magical expectation. I know it's something that I cultivate, is that I just have that magical expectation, and when things appear to go wrong, you make a wrong turn, something unusual happens, I just really have trained myself to go, oh, it's getting groovy. This is you know what I mean? When your path gets kind of corrected and you start going in a direction you hadn't planned, or something odd happens throughout the day, so especially something unexpected, I start to get excited. Because I have that it's one of my disciplines is to keep that magical expectation at all times, no matter how wrong things may appear to be going, even if they really suck. I'm relentless. I won't give up. My magical expectation is like maybe my one true grasp onto reality, except for when I'm totally freaking out and I have to go, am I okay right now?
Yeah.
So
that's a great way of putting it. Magical expectation. I like that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, along with what we're talking about, I know we're at an hour, so any time past this, I realize it's bonus time. So if you got to go, that's okay. But I'm going to ask you another question. Sure. So I do want to get into, like your personal, like waking up, like when you realized reality was not exactly as it appears to be. That's when you were quite young. But before then, have you noticed people recently getting more crazier than ever? I mean, I'm noticing the last couple years, and it just seems like it's getting exponentially worse. Like, there's no middle ground anymore. There's only extreme factions, extreme beliefs right now. Everybody's thoughts are very fossilized in their brains. And people are either moving into or out of self-awareness, because we know some people have that. I call it self-awareness, and it doesn't make a person better than anybody else, but that's self-awareness. Like if you have magical expectation and you truly believe in that, that's self-awareness. Then there's people who they have a different awareness, let's say a mundane awareness. There's no magic to life. It seems like people are either becoming way more powerful in their magical expectation, their spiritual reality. They're seeing they're deepening into themselves, into the universe. They're starting to have this cosmic life where people are becoming extremely mundane, extremely rooted in the physical. So it seems like have you noticed just like humanity here, like since we're both in America, I'll say America, probably worldwide, just becoming like we're in a Cold War right now. That's what it feels like. It's cold, literally. That's what I'm sensing, and it seems like I don't get how people got so. I've never seen people like you can focus on politics without getting in anything specific. I've never seen such a politically divisive time, and I've never seen people so barbaric and truly just like seeing other humans as not humans in my life. I realize this is an important time. It's a time we have to go through, but are you noticing just this real intensity, or is this just in my little world where I'm seeing this?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. And I don't know if you saw my tweet of retweeting Alex Jones's latest meltdown of profanities.
I did see that, yeah, and that was there you go. I've never even seen Alex Jones that crazy, and that's quite a statement. I have not seen Alex Jones that crazy before.
Never, ever. I know the guy. I made 7 of his DVDs. Never. I mean, we all know he's a jerk, but never would you see him like that. I've never seen him in that state before, even drunk. So I thought that was one of the signs. And then in the research field, to compare this, kind of analogous to all of this, in the research fields, it seems that everybody's either way off on the secret space program end of things, where everything is completely undefinable, right? No references, no nothing, just whistleblowers saying, yeah, I went to Mars. As
Eric Rain said on your show just recently, he said, okay, the secret space program, great, maybe it exists, maybe not, but what are we supposed to do about it? How's that really relevant to our experience? Keep going.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then there's the actual experience that's going on with the X-37B orbiting the planet, the ionospheric heaters going on, the space war ramping up between Russia and America, and Russia, China, and America. And so as I have been covering the space war for, over a decade, I have very bona fide, very hard science. And then when you start talking about the space war or space force or, things that exist, the space battle labs, things like that, then suddenly people are all way off on the spectrum thinking you're talking about some secret anti-gravitic space program. And it's like, no, this is the Space Force. It's housed in Cheyenne Mountain, Space Command, And so as a researcher, it's getting very difficult because you want to talk about, quote unquote, mundane things that, when glow-in-the-dark cats and sheeple, human hybrid sheep start becoming mundane, then I am concerned, because if it has to go out to this deep space, like a high-tech out of here, something that you can't define, prove, or share, then yeah, we've completely lost the narrative. And on the same level as I brought to the world this concept of occult corporate logos, which were signs of allegiance to Freemasons, it suddenly became this thing where it was invoking magical properties, and it was given over to this ethereal group known as the Illuminati. So a research into Freemasons and their control over the networks and civilization, corporations, what their signs and symbols mean, has all just been thrown out the window for this thing that is now called the Illuminati, which has no existence whatsoever, cannot be pointed to, cannot be proven, cannot be shown. So as a researcher, I see that same sparse division, this massive division between what's real and what people want to be real. And they don't go the other way. Like, my X-37B studies, which is the robotic space plane that's orbiting our planet right now, military robotic space plane, or Robonaut 2, the telepresence robot aboard the International Space Station, or the 30-plus stem cell projects on the International Space Station that are seeking immortality. These are all things that you can go to nasa.com and look up. It's not some secret space program. So when I try to talk about things that are occurring, if I asked, so when did they clone the first mummies? People would say, oh, I'm sure that's going on somewhere. And I'm like, no, Google it. They cloned the first mummies in 1984. It was in Nature magazine. It was in the New York Times. It happened in 1984, folks. But people would never think to go look it up because they just assume that you're speaking of some crazy Spectre space program or the Illuminati, which doesn't exist. And so the narrative has also just ventured out into this ethereal realm. And so nobody needs proof anymore. They just need a belief. And I witnessed this occur through the university. I've had, 8 years of university. And I witnessed this actually happening where saying, I don't know, actually became a negative. And if you were to sit there in class and say, well, I don't actually know the answer to this, they would say, well, what's your opinion? And so people were conditioned to give their opinion instead of the factual answer. And that engineered this whole mindset as I see it. But then, now we're into massive narcissism with social networking where anyone can be a star. And usually the most obnoxious people are the stars. So give you an example. Go to my YouTube channel, Freeman TV, and go down to most viewed videos. Well, guess what? It's all the ones that the people ridicule. So all the lectures that I've given on hard facts and sciences, they may have 27,000 views. But the ones where everything is unbelievable, people like Stuart Swerdlow, who says he's, part of this secrets program and all of this, that's got 1 million views. It's the only video I have on my channel that has 1 million views. I've been on there since YouTube began, but because people ridicule that video, it gets the most play. Another example of this is the 666 logo for the Monster Drink logo. I had shown you that this Monster Drink logo is 666 in Hebrew. But of course, I put it in very scientific terms in a lecture, got no airplay for it whatsoever. Some crazy lady standing next to a counter in a busy conference giving some rant about the Monster Drink logo being 666 got millions of views. I mean, I've given 3 lectures on this topic, and neither one of them has 20,000 views. But this lady who brought it up, who is well known for this 666 Monster Drink logo for her millions of views because of the ridicule. So that is a very interesting and scientifically proven thing that you can see. So that's the state of humanity. Yes, we are not looking for the facts. We are basing everything on our opinions, and our opinions are being fed to us by things like QAnon or the mainstream media.
Oh, yeah. Based on feelings. I tend to, there's a millennial term that I really like just called feels. Everything is based on feels, strong emotion one way or the other. And that has replaced evidence, knowledge, physics, all this stuff, empirical research. No, that's that.
Don't need that.
Yeah, no, I got the feels, man. And I'm.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. Well, something you just mentioned that I think is a big deal I'm seeing right now is QAnon. And I see that out there, and if anybody wants to totally carpet bomb me and flame me, it's cool. I can take it. But save your breath. Don't bother people. I think QAnon, and I could be wrong. I mean, I have very strong opinions, but I don't take them seriously. They change. I totally reserve the right to contradict myself at any moment, But what I noticed is I think QAnon is the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard of in my life. And I feel like it has been engineered. What Q is, in the shortest words I can come up with, are it's getting everybody who should be concerned to stand down, do nothing, and trust the plan and believe in fairy tales. Anyway, I mean, I know the interview is about you, but but what is your take on Q? And if you believe in it, I got no problem with that. I just myself personally, I think Q has been created to pacify people that would usually be pissed off.
Yeah, that is absolutely my feeling as well. And also guiding the narrative, telling you which articles to read and which ones are worthy and which ones are lies. And then never giving you a full statement, but just being this obscure sort of almost biblical text where you had to decipher what they actually meant from it and just go on your own interpretations. So I don't follow it at all. And it kind of annoyed me that it got so much attention. And it's weird things like that, what grabs people and what doesn't. But I'm right there with you. I think it's all just, it's either the deep state doing something, or it's, it could be even AI. It could be a foreigner. That's the problem. If you're going to come forward and you're going to try and save the world, I want to know who you are. I want to know what you're thinking. I want straight answers,
Yeah, because Q, it does not sit well with me. Whenever I see these posts, it's like, 30 random words, and then a month later, one of those words will be in a tweet that Trump does, and people will say what more proof do you need? And I'm like, okay, so out of these 30 random words, he said tarmac, or it said tarmac, then Trump mentioned tarmac, a month later in a tweet. I mean, honestly, anybody could fake B&Q if you followed a little bit. You're kind of I could just start.
I thought of doing this back in the days of AOL. I was going to do that because I knew I had enough knowledge to make people think I was something.
Talked plenty of smack about Q, so good. But I think Q deserves it. So, when you mentioned with the Monster Energy drink, I have to kind of go back and just touch on that really quick. If anybody wants to Google just Freeman TV, or just Freeman and Aliens from Hell, there's a page on Freeman's immense site of data. And
it's the only place you're going to find it because it's blocked worldwide on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's great. And that is a great page to check out. There's not too much text to read, so don't worry about it. But there's some great videos there, and you actually get to hear Freeman say, "I want to wash my ape in your Milky Way." So it's you don't want to miss that. And he covers the Monster Energy drink and the 666. And I tell you, before I'd seen that page, and I followed your interviews for years, I had not seen that page. I had not looked at that because, well, no one looks at your site. And I've always been intrigued by the Monster Energy drink logo, the big green M, because I see that everywhere, especially on lifted pickup trucks. It's like people are proud of drinking this crap. If anyone's into health at all, it's garbage. Most things that come in a can are, but it's just oh my gosh. So I drink this poison that makes me kind of, not want to kill myself for an hour. And I'm so happy about it. I'm going to put a big logo on my car or my truck. And I tell you, there's something about that really struck me when I saw that the page. Aliens from Hell and you got into the Monster Energy drink logo in 666, because I was like, there is something that is drawing people to Monster Energy drinks and to that logo. They're poisoning themselves and they're so happy about it. They're putting the logo on their vehicles. I mean, to me, it would be the same as like getting a big Monsanto sticker or something like that and sticking it on my car, like while I eat GMO mutant corn or something like that and I'm driving along. It's so bizarre. There is such mind control out there. There's something about that symbol and the poison and what it does to the body and people actually wanting to celebrate it and being like, and say, look, I'm killing myself.
Yeah, and if you watch Aliens from Hell, you'll see it's not just Monster Drink logo with the Hebrew 666, but you got Demon, with their sacrificial cherry flavor, Lucifer lemonade, and then right there on the packaging of these hyper drinks, they bring out this whole story about the Illuminati. It was printed on the can, how it was they making a joke out of it, but yet there it was. You can still find those old Monster drinks with the Illuminati story on it. I don't remember exactly what it said.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know
but
that.
It is bizarre how. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up again. It's been a while since I looked into that. But yeah, why was that Claw M so attractive to everyone that they needed to alter all their vehicles? Because yeah, you're right, it's everywhere. It's ridiculous. And when you're someone like me that's symbolically registered, I see 666 everywhere I look, because I trained in Hebrew for Kabbalistic studies so that I could understand the magic that I was researching. And so when I saw the Monster Drink logo, my brain immediately saw 666. It didn't take me a minute. That's just what I saw, because that's the Hebrew letter V, and the Hebrew letter V is the number 6. It's not like Roman, Hebrew it's every letter in Hebrew is a number. And so, yeah, I was already deep into studying Hebrews. So it was immediately 666 to me. So it is bizarre. And the other one that was kind of a secret satanic logo that no one realized and that was the O and the X, the symbol of your Xbox, the symbol of X-Files, the symbol of X-Men. That O and X symbol, if you get the satanic works of Kenneth Grant. Now, when I say words like satanic, I'm not being open. He is a Satanist. Right. So when I use terms like Satanist, I mean Satanist. If you said that the government were Satanist, I would ask you, which type of Satanist are you referring to? Is that the Church of Satan? Is that, because that's the way my brain works. So anyway, Kenneth Grant, he was head of the Ordo Templi Orientis and developed this science of magic of the Typhonian order, which is dealing with the abyss and dealing with the dark side. And in that, he states that the mark of the beast is this O and X symbol. Now suddenly Russell Brand has it on his microphone. It's called Brand X. You've already got the X-Men, the X-Files, your Xbox, and all of these are branded by the satanic mark of the beast. Now, Christians may think the mark of the beast is the chip or whatever they want to think it is. But if you go and open the Satanic Works, the Typhonian trilogy of Kenneth Grant, and you read, what a Satanist says the mark of the beast looks like. Well, another example of that would be Rex Diabolus Church, who was a high priest of the Church of Satan, who I've had on my show many times and is a really good friend of mine. He's an awesome person, right? I'm not biased. He's one of the nicest people I know, but he has horns and he wears black leather and he sleeps in a coffin. But on the back of his skull, which you can see on my YouTube channel, he has embedded that OX symbol, the mark of the beast, because he knows, he knows this stuff. So there's all kinds of secret satanic symbols that are around us all the time, which are curious to me because only a Satanist would know.
Yeah, and while they're out there, especially on the back of cars, which are getting, maximum exposure. They're on billboards and such like that. It makes me think about something that Neil Kramer said on, I believe it was one of your interviews with Neil Kramer. He said, symbols are machines. They do things. And so these symbols that are out there, they're not passive. Every eye that catches that energy is being broadcast into the collective consciousness, basically. I mean, to see is to transmit, is to become in vibrational harmony with. So when you register monster, then that it's a bit eerie, and I was always not drawn to it before I knew what it was, but I thought that looks kind of cool.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't want one. I'm like, I'm not going to put a symbol for poison on my car, but I thought that looks kind of cool. I guess I can see why somebody would do that if they, I don't know, were kind of tasteless. I don't know.
But those power drinks are all openly demonic. It's it's on the
Really?
label. You can get a demon drink. There's demon. That's their brand, and of course Monster, and then Rockstar. I mean, it has its own connotations, but then their symbol being the R and the R back to back. The R in Kabbalistic is the sun. And so having these suns back to back inside of a pentagram for Rockstar is, another intriguing sign and symbol within this.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm going to ask you, your own personal waking up. Were you a different kid? Have you always been Freeman, or did Freeman come later? I've often noticed that some people seem to have I'm just going to call it an awakening for lack of better terms, at some point in their life. But then some people seem to have kind of been born with that awakening happened upon birth, basically, and it can be quite a little bit of a burden, especially when we're young, to have that awakening, that self-awareness, because if you start to wake up when you're an adult, it can be very, very shocking. But when you kind of are born, like when you're a youngster and you're kind of born awake, well, wow, then you really have no reference for what's going on. And it could kind of go either way. It could make it easier or harder. Just kind of wondering what triggered you to be Freeman? When did that happen?
Well, I'd always been, I like to compare myself to the weird kid in a Stephen King novel, where I enjoyed horror. I enjoyed, Creature from the Black Lagoon was probably one of my favorite characters. And I was into the Bermuda Triangle and UFOs and all of that when I was a youngster. And I actually had a number of UFO experiences as a kid that I don't actually remember, but I remember me and my friend discussing them and drawing pictures of what we had seen. So strangely, I have no recollection of the events themselves, but only us discussing the events. So as a kid, I was already way, way out there, loving UFO stuff, loving the Bermuda Triangle stuff, reading all that, everything I could about the strange life on planet Earth, those Time Warner books or, of the strange, little men mummified inside of rocks and things like that. So that's always been there. But then, I lost all of that and I became a punk rocker in high school and was in a band, was just doing the cool thing. But I was a nerd, an honor student that got picked on, beat up, bullied, and all of that for most of my life. And unfortunately, the institution of schooling forces you to stay with those bullies for 12 years. So, I had to live with that most of my life. And then eventually I broke free as a rebel, an anarchist, and a punk rocker. Although I was never a punk rocker, I was a heavy metaler in the punk rock scene. And I actually was written up in Maximum Rock and Roll for my punk band. So that's one thing. I have a band now called Molecular. I still am an artist. I still have to create at all times. So I have molecularband.com. If you want to go check out my music, I think you'll dig it. But I think I'll shock you as well, because most people don't see me as the rocker that I am. So they tend to think I'm a hippie. I'm not a hippie. I've never been a hippie. So in my first college, in this honors course called Interdisciplinary Studies, which was really the Club of Rome's social engineering campaign, I learned a lot about what the Club of Rome and others want from society by going through this 2.5-year course. And in that course, there was a crazy guy that wild long hair, and I called him Alistair Morrison because he was studying Crowley and all of that, and yet he was more like Jim Morrison and just wild. But yet a genius, an absolute genius. This is the honors society, but we were the two crazy ones in it. And he introduced me to the signs and symbols of Freemasonry and the ideas of the esoteric, which we all laughed at when he brought it up. We're like, esoteric? That's not a word. What does that mean? Now, I realize this is college, but there was no World Wide Web yet, folks. If you didn't know something, you didn't know something. It had to come into your attention before you even knew to look for it. And so here it was, and I saw that sign of a Freemason in that book, the Compass, Square, and G, and I said, wait a minute, that's in my dad's top drawer. I used to wear his cufflinks, his Masonic cufflinks, as my space insignia when I played Battlestar Galactica, which is also somewhat of a Mason Mormon story, so a weird little coincidence in there, but my friend says, well, your dad's a Freemason. I'm like, no, he's not, not with what you're telling me, all this crazy stuff going into lodges and performing rituals with blindfolds and swords and nooses and such. No, that's not my dad. And he says, go ask him. So I did. And sure enough, 25 years of my life, I never knew any of this stuff about my dad. But turns out, well, yes, yeah, I was on Killer One submarine with Jimmy Carter. Here's the photos, which I have, So here's my dad on a first killer submarine with Jimmy Carter. And then he's like, yeah, and I've been a Freemason all this time, but there was a big deal between your mom and the other worshipful master and Kaiserslautern. And I had to leave the order because I couldn't marry your mom, because she was married to another worshipful master, and you can't do that, so I'm no longer a Freemason. But did I ever mention that I chased flying saucers for Project Blue Book? What? No. 25 years of my life, I've been studying UFOs since I was 10 years old. I know every abduction story. I know every UFO story. I know all of this. Why don't I know my dad chased flying saucers for Project Blue Book? He says, well, yeah. And I said, so flying saucers are real. And he says, yeah, they're real. I was stationed on a South Sea island, and I had 4 radar dishes. And whenever the flying saucers would come over, it was my job to report it. That's all I ever got out of him about this. I tried to interview him for my show and many, many years later. And he died the day I was intending to interview him, which was another bizarre coincidence because he wasn't expected to die. He wasn't in a deathbed or anything. He was 67 years old.
And in good health, nothing unusual going on?
He was a drinker, He was in a bad state. He did have a stroke, and he had pretty much lost his lust for life altogether. So
wow, well, there are no accidents. I mean, so either his, I guess, soul decided he wanted to it wanted to check out without divulging,
or he was under some sort of mind control that triggered when he was going to give his secrets to me.
That would make sense, yeah.
Which I don't want to believe, because then I caused my dad's death,
Well, that's the thing. I would say that everybody checks in and out on cue. Ultimately, our incarnation is truly a bit narcissistic. It's about us. So, there may have been a synchronicity there, but you didn't cause it. Just simply a synchronicity. But yeah, that's intense.
So what I discovered over the years was that anyone that I spoke to that really took to this information, that really started digging deep on their own, they'd suddenly found out that they had no idea that their family and father were all involved in this. I witnessed this a number of times where I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Went over to one friend's house for Thanksgiving dinner. I had just made the documentary with Tex Mars on Codex Magica, the hand signs and gestures of the Illuminati. And I started talking about that at Thanksgiving dinner, which ended up erupting in this massive tale of this guy's father chasing flying saucers for the government, doing all this crazy psychic experiments and all of this stuff, and the whole family sitting around the Thanksgiving room table with their jaws dropped. No one knew. And so that's something that I've noted as well. So I've linked that to genetic memory. And I believe that that's a major factor in what we're looking at with bloodlines and how everything runs, how this story has managed to continue for thousands of years is this genetic memory. And we've got conclusive scientific proof that genetic memory exists. And we have pseudo proof, because why else would anybody put a plastic owl on top of a building except for to use genetic memory to scare the birds away? So we know genetic memory is there, and showing me that these people that suddenly are really into this information also have genetic lines with it. That's where I go with that.
Oh, definitely. Well, I think we are, as Neil Kramer puts it, we're cleansing our bloodline. Like we are, not just us. We're the outcome of many generations, and so I think as people wake up more and more that I'm seeing around me, they begin to really take on the hard work of completing cycles that they inherited from their family, basically. And that can be very difficult, because if you can do it, you're going to be challenged. Like, you wouldn't get the challenge if you couldn't do it. And I mean, like, I know for me, I come from a long military family. Like, everyone's been in the military, like, forever. Like, my great-great-great-grandfather was actually in Custer's Army. And
right.
so,
I just found a picture of my great-great-grandfather in
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so we're cleansing that. Like, and I was in the military when I was a youngster, and now that is, I mean, I do not endorse the military. Everyone, do not join the military. But with that said, that when I was a kid, I thought it was cool. And I went through that experience, and through going through it, I cleansed it. Like, there won't be, like, it ended with me, that, if you know what I mean. So we're taking stuff on, and we're ending it, we're cleansing it. So yeah, that genetic memory is something definitely to pay attention to, and realize that it was like your one guest said, the universe is trying to tell you things, and your genetic memory is trying to tell you things. And then I think also, Sherry Swanning, she also said that your thoughts are not your own. So it's really important for us to look at, where is this motivation coming from, and to, I don't know, play it out, figure out what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my last advice, is that creative play is the essence of the universe, and we are taught to struggle. And if you actually find, I mean, you know how many people get envious of me for the life that I've lived? And I'm like, dude, just go. You know what I mean? It doesn't take anyone special. It's just, you got to do it, and you got to have faith, and you got to trust it, and you got to keep going. Creative play is the essence of the universe. And if we could all adopt that as our answer to the problems, then I believe that we could get much further. I mean, there's one thing I know about humans, and that's they love to dress up. They love to be creative. They love to be artists. And the truth about humans is that we are creators. That's what makes us so special. I mean, look at what we create, but our form follows our function. And so if we were to open up our creation to play, recognize that Disney's saying we're capturing your imagination, and that's the truth. And magic is the will and imagination combined. So if your imagination is leading you to dress up as a Hollywood character for Halloween, then your imagination has been captured, folks. And your creative play has been stifled down to the limitations of those controllers that are mastering and controlling your imagination.
Absolutely. So we're at an hour and 42. We can call it a show now, or I can go for the even 2 hours. It's up to you how much time you've got.
Well, 42 is a magical number for me, so
Let's do it.
It means stop, and yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, well, this has been amazing, and, thank you so much for taking the time, and, I look forward to getting this out there, and this was Radiant Creators, radiantcreators.com. Check us out. And where can people find you, Freeman?
freemantv.com. It's the one and only source where you can find everything that I do, because my stuff is blocked, banned, and barred everywhere. It's blocked on YouTube worldwide. You don't know what you don't know from me, because you got to go to my website to see it, because it's not in the other places because they won't allow me. So yes, freemantv.com. It should keep you occupied for at least half a decade, if not more.
At least half a decade. Well, thank you so much. Hope to talk to you again sometime. Take care, and talk to you again.
Thank you, Craig. This was a lot of fun.
It was. Bye-bye.
Bye.